Big Little Durk updates. It's like every time we look at this case, we're gonna read certain times where his docket has updates, new motions go back and forth, superseding indictment, turns around, and it's just like, all right, this person's trying to sever from the case. Your co-defendant over here is trying to sever from the case. They making us feel like everybody then gave up on Dirk, showing us footage of like 5 people showing up to his court dates. It's like, damn. Then we turn around and we hear some other stuff. We be like, wait, it's actually looking better for him. It's supposed to be like this, up, down, up, down, up, down, until we get to the actual trial. But at least for this moment right now, where are we? March 3rd, 2026. He's got some positive updates. All right. Talk to us on this one right here. Let's get some details.
Lil Durk update. You listen to the noise, all you're going to hear is Durk is cooked. Nobody's there for Durk. Motion denied. But that's just the noise. The fact of the matter is his trial team has won a number of points in this case. The indictments, there's been 3 indictments, and each time the allegations against Durk have thinned out. Some of the evidence that they wanted to use has actually been withdrawn so that the judge didn't have to exclude it. First, when they charged Durk, the main allegation about him rapping and his lyrics was this lyric about him going, told me they got an addy, got location, green light, seen your son on the news screaming, no, no. Okay, that lyric, if you play that lyric, then you play the video of Quando next to the murdered victim, no, you would have won major points with a jury. That lyric's not in the indictment anymore because Finling showed that those lyrics were written well before the murder.
How did they get away with that one? Hold on, let me reword that. I don't want to say get away with it as if it's cap. I allegedly. All right, let's be real. Everybody that follows Durk career knows the music. You can't convince us if we were just in a quiet room amongst each other as hip hop fans talking like, yeah, that song had nothing to do with Quando Rondo and his cousin and the shooting that day. But remember, we pulled up the screenshots and that was in the paperwork. And they showed it was like from the engineering, and it was the files were time stamped and it had dates before the shooting. And that's when I saw Cassidy laugh and say, how'd y'all do that? You know, did you change anything around? Is that, I don't know. You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying I'm praying on the man having to fight that, you know? And all jokes aside, the reason why we're sarcastic about shit like that is because we know how much warring Durk has done in his music. We know how much shots and death he's talked about in his music, allegedly. So for them to be able to convince and have it pulled out, like that track had nothing to do with Quando Rondo on the news screaming, no. Talk about a victory. Shit.
Couple more points. When they bought this case, they said the conspiracy started in August 2022. That's when Durk arranged to get these rentals, Little Durk update. You listen to the noise. They withdrew evidence of a 2022 incident in Chicago, which appears to have been them wanting to show that, hey, look, another time in Chicago back in 2022, he paid for people to go do violence. Well, they took that off the table and they said, hey, we're not going to talk about any of that.
Wasn't that was a Stephen Mack, right? The shooting in Chicago that was allegedly tied to a retaliation murder for D-Thing, Little Durk's brother. We went through that entire paperwork as well. That was like the hit at like the youth center or the kids center, something like that. Guy coming out of work, 2 niggas with choppers, hit one of the security guards that came out too, I believe, chased Mack down, killed him. That indictment got unsealed after Durk was first taken into custody. And that shit was like a year old or something like that. And that's what made us say like, oh, they've been on him for a minute. And now they're about to start trying to link all this activity for different stuff into this right here related to Quando Rondo's cousin. We was just like, oh, shit. That was big, though. That's big. If that's taken off the table, that's a whole picture and indictment and footage captured about that shooting to show that indeed he is the head and he's using his money, his power, and his influence and his voice of the streets, right, to send murderers out there and to place hits on people. So if you get that one off the table, can't use that one at trial, that's another huge win. Huge.
And here's the big one. When they charged Durk, they said in the indictment about the bounty that at the direction of defendant Dirk Banks, defendant Wilson, that's OTF Didi, would pay the bounty or monetary reward to the that's gone. We know OTF Didi Wilson is going to trial. So their main allegation on the bounty that Dirk told Didi to pay is gone, and they're pivoting to another way to prove the bounty. What did they pivot to? They say the consideration, the thing Dirk promised for the year, was lucrative music opportunities with OTF, putting people in videos. That's their theory of the bounty payment. That is where you make your defense. The for hire statute, they withdrew evidence of a 20. Interesting.
We broke that one down too, y'all. We read that motion. We said, prosecution side is going to struggle with that. I'm sorry. If you had allegedly Didi in some type of record, a text message, an email, a phone call, something saying like, yeah, these hits right here, Dirk is going to end up dropping a bag off of 50 grand, whatever, just proxy in the bread. Okay. Major, huge. We thought that was going to be the case, and that was what was going to take down Govan, allegedly between him and Big Jook, right? Govan beat his shit. So you don't have that anymore with Didi, and Didi's going to trial. We're not hearing nothing about Didi telling. So he's going to trial to fight this, and you don't have that over him anymore. And what you're going to walk in there and say, the way that Dirk paid people for these hits or for these murder for hires is by putting them in music videos. How many times or examples can Dirk show the jury that putting on different artists onto my music, showing love, working with people that I grew up with, working with this guy Didi a million times over, having him in the backgrounds of songs, them do features on somebody. This is just what I do. This is my homie. Like, you're saying I paid for a hit by featuring him on a song. This is my friend. What's wrong with him featuring on my song and he can rap? That's not an easy sell. That's not an easy sell, man. You have to come to the table more to show these bounties I would put up other than, oh, the form of payment for these hits was just clouting them up in a music video. I don't know about that. The guy's done music videos with 100 people in the background sometimes. That's what you're going to use? Nah. Even if it's true, it just, to me, in a court proceeding, to the jury, you got to get past reasonable doubt, beyond reasonable doubt. I don't see that working. So, yeah, that's 3 for 3 as far as the W's that he's taking right now.
At the same time that the government pivoted from saying Didi paid the to saying, hey, it was putting people in music videos, they also added a fallback charge. So when they bought the case, the original indictment, there was no stalking charge. In the second superseding indictment against Dirk, they added a stalking charge. And the stalking charge is important because it doesn't require any contract. No quid pro quo, no bounty, no payment theory. You can add that charge and simply prove that, hey, he was telling people to go do this. He didn't necessarily pay them to go, but he was telling them to go follow that guy. He was telling them to go stalk that guy. And a jury can look at it and say, a lot like in the Diddy case, that, hey, not exactly sure here. Very, 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 very suspicious individual over here. I'm going to go ahead and hit him with the lesser charge. And so, when the government puts in that fallback charge later in the case, that tells you that they're not 100% sure on their theory, that they acknowledge that, hey, we need to have a fallback here. The lyrics that Dirk has out there are about, interestingly, at this.
A fallback charge that shows that your initial big shit that you put on the plate is weaker. Wow. The thing about the stalking, though, that still scares me, not even just in the Lil Durk scenario. If you are just talking out your face and you have influence, and you probably don't even need to have influence, but imagine a rapper, Lil Baby. Let's say he gets on camera and starts talking shit like, yo, academics be violating, and he be talking shit on them streams, you know what I'm saying? Like, somebody gonna ahead press him, put hands on him, slap him. Or you see people put bounties out talking about, yo, bring me his chain. I got 10 stacks for that chain or whatever. Bring me his this or bring me his that. Now, if something happens to that person, even if he's not directly tied to you, can that be tied into like a stalking charge? Because you're creating an influence of these people to possibly do something. And if that person slips on a banana peel and falls, can you be tied in? Right. But that's once again something lesser. So fallback type of charges. I wonder if that can constitute stalking. Lil Durk's got a lot of lyrics about go ahead and pop up at them shows. We'll be there too. We're gonna catch you here. That's why you got ran out of Atlanta. Wasn't there a shooting after a Quando Rondo performance in Atlanta at a gas station, allegedly? Right. So the stalking, the stalking, the stalking. Why did Lil Durk allegedly fly to LA at the time of all this going down? Stalking, stalking, stalking. So they have certain things that they're probably going to be able to tie into that charge. But is it strong? Because out here in the hip hop world and out here in the streets, we're always going to look at the situation and be like, you know what I mean by when I say that, when I do that face, when we look at. So what y'all think about Lil Durk and Quando Rondo's cousin and the shooting in Beverly Hills and all that? What y'all think? You get it? The court system and the process and reasonable doubt and that jury having to go back there and deliberate and say, without a doubt, boom, 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 boom. It's a whole different story. It's a whole different story. These are absolutely big wins for Durk.